Smart Status DVI from a technician perspective. So you'll notice I have RWriter minimized and I just have the tablet dead center on the screen here. I have the tablet dead center on the screen for several reasons. Reason number one, the service writers are the ones that will be using RWriter, and the technicians will be typically just utilizing their tablets. Technicians don't need quite as many options. They have a very streamlined process that they are going to follow. And because of that, we limit the amount of icons that they would be able to see. So with that said, we have our time clock, work in progress, estimates window, and then in the far right corner, you have the ability to log in and out of the application by clicking these three dots up at the top here. You can also manage the data location and the resolution of the photos. So for instance, if I want high resolution photos, all I have to do is bump that slider up. If I wanted to go ahead and manage the connection, that would be the data location in which we are connected to right now. We can go ahead and tap that window there. There's also a message window where we can communicate directly with our service writer. But for right now, let's go ahead and make sure we are punched into our writer. So how do we do that? We click on the time clock. Now, clicking on the time clock, you'll notice that we have three separate options here. Option number one is we can punch out for a meal. Option number two, we can punch out for a break. And then option number three is we can punch out for the day. So why do we include three different options in this window here? Well, as we go through our time clock, we want to document that our technicians are in fact taking breaks throughout the day. Some states actually mandate that the employees have to punch out for a meal or break. So this does the hard work for you in identifying those specific punches. Now, before I leave the time clock section quickly, I just want to note that punching in or out of the time clock only happens on site. It's going to only depend on how close they are in proximity to the Wi-Fi, whether they can punch in or out. Let's go back to this window here. You'll see we have the ability to see our estimates. And there's only one estimate in this window right now because, again, we are typically, as a technician, going to be doing our work from work in progress. So if I click on work in progress, I can see a list of the vehicles that are assigned to me. You'll notice that I can't see anybody else's vehicles. Now, these vehicles that I have listed here are the ones that are solely my responsibility. Now, as we go through this list, we can see the blue indicates the customer's vehicle, and everything beneath that customer's vehicle is the work that is assigned to the technician. So we're looking at things from more of a labor perspective. These are the individual jobs on each of these tickets. What's interesting about this is you'll notice on this particular courtesy check here, I have a time clock. But if I click the check mark on the time clock, that's going to stop the time that I've spent on this particular job. So if I look at this job and go to my services tab, you can see as far as the courtesy check goes, it doesn't show any time elapsed on the actual tablet, but if we go to the reported section in our writer, it'll show me how long that technician spent on this particular job. Again, to simply do this, all you have to have the technician do is punch in by clicking the little icon that looks like a clock. That starts elapsing the time that it takes that technician to complete that pressure cooling test. Now, when the technician's done, and I'll do this prematurely, all he has to do is click the check icon, and that indicates that it's complete. But let's say a technician starts punching in on, let's say, the state emissions test, and they have to walk away from a moment. Well, they can do that. You just click on the time clock again, and it stops the clock. If I have to go to a free courtesy check, I can punch in on that and have both of them going at the same time, or in the configurations tab, you can actually say, hey, I only want my technician to be able to punch in on one job at a time. But in this example, I'm just going to punch off the emissions job, and we'll stay punched in to the courtesy inspection. Let's take a deeper dive at this courtesy inspection, shall we? I'm going to click on that red icon. Now, when I click on that red icon, it's going to open up a window such as this. And we have some icons in which we can go through and check off. Now, with the Android version, you can just simply tap on an icon, and that will mark off whether or not it's good or bad. With the iOS version, you will do some swipe gestures. But for this example today, we're going to focus on the Android app. So I'm going to mark this cabin air filter off that it's bad. And we'll go through and go all the way down the list here. And you can see how simple this actually is. as we go through the list. It's super fast, and I think that this is one of the reasons why so many technicians gravitate towards this. So you'll see I marked off this left rear tire, and let's just say, well, hey, wait a second. What's wrong with this left rear tire? We want to document that. Well, what we can do is we can take a photo of the tire to actually document it. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll take a photo, and we're going to say we're going to add a new image. So we'll go ahead and say, bloop, there it is. And that's going to be the image of the tire. It's a small tire, but that'll work. So we'll go ahead and click on OK. Next, what we can do is we can go ahead and annotate this image. Basically, let's say somebody wanted to know exactly what they're looking at. Well, maybe it's got a nail in a tire right there. Well, we can go ahead and put a mark in there. That arrow I put in the wrong place, but you can go ahead and remove that arrow if you need it, or remove it all. So I'll try that again. We'll go ahead and try to draw this again. There it is. There's the nail in the tire this time, and you can also change the color of what you see, and I can go ahead and save that, and now that's directly in our writer. And again, that's a high resolution image that can be emailed or texted to the customer from the service writer. We can go ahead and just mark this last piece complete, and if we go back to the main screen, you'll now notice that that courtesy inspection is moved to the green, and now that I'm complete with that, click the check mark to indicate that I am now done with that job. The service writer will now get a notification on their window that the checklist is complete. They'll see that the notification is in the green, or again, we can message, hey, Ashley's vehicle is ready. We'll just type that in there. There we go. And then we'll send that off to the service writer. So our messages will always be in yellow. Service writer messages will always be in blue. Again, anytime a vehicle is assigned to us, the technician, we'll get a pop-up notification. It's a persistent notification that we have to agree to. Going back into this window here, we have a couple of things going on Erin's vehicle. Let's take a deeper dive at that. Where do we see the work that we're doing on Erin's vehicle? Well, we click on the services tab. This will break down what parts and labor we are going to be doing on her vehicle. So if we look here closely, we're doing a master cylinder, and we are also doing an oil change. Now you'll notice that there's some lettering off to the right-hand side. The letters that start with S, those are the parts that are in stock. Anything that is marked with an O that is green means it was ordered and it is now at the shop. That means somebody had posted that to accounts payable. So in theory, the part should be on site. Now, if you ever see this with a red N next to the part number, that means the part is not in stock, and that typically will also indicate that the part had to be ordered. Your service writers should be sending you notifications directly to your tablet when a status changes in our writer. So for instance, if we go to our smart status window here, again, we're going to just look for anything that's assigned to Bart Smith right now. That's the only tickets that I want to see. So here's Erin's vehicle. And I'm going to drag this over to the Approved tab. Now, as I drag that over to the Approved tab, we can look back at our tablet and we can see that, oh, we now have a message letting us know that the customer has approved the work that's assigned to the ticket. So we don't have to worry about waiting for the service writer to let us know to begin this work. And again, I cannot take any other action on the application until I hit OK. This lets me know, like, hey, you've accepted that the job is now approved. You can go ahead and begin your work. So again, you can see the list of the parts here. We can also go to our notes tab, and any notes that were put there by the service writer, we can go ahead and view. If we want to take a look at, he's telling us, hey, don't roll down that driver's side window. It's not going to go back up. So he's letting us know that. And again, we can see that under the vehicle tab. Now there is also a tab under here called the RO tab. Now anything we put into the RO tab will appear on the printed repair order. So if you specifically need to put notes about a vehicle or a customer, I would always suggest that you put that under the customer or vehicle tab. Skip the RO tab unless a service writer indicates otherwise, because again, the RO tab is going to print directly to the repair order or the finalized invoice. Moving over to the history tab, you do have full access to the history. Now, from a technician perspective, you're not going to see any sort of prices or anything like that. However, what you can see is who worked on a vehicle prior to you. So obviously on the left-hand side here, we've got these initials here. You can see what you worked on. So BAS is us, that's Bart Smith. And then you have BF, Bill Fosterman, you have Carl Nicholson, CN. So you can sort of get an idea of who did what when a customer comes back. Now it's separated into two parts there. You have your labor and then you have your parts. So if you want to toggle between the two, you can definitely do that to see what was done on a vehicle before you recommend something. Now, if you ever want to know what a customer declined on a vehicle, simply clicking on the decline section here will allow us to look at what items were recommended but declined to the customer. Speaking of recommended items, there is a recommended tab in which we can see any of the suggested services that we may have put on a ticket in advance for this customer. There's also an images tab where any images that we've taken from the customer's vehicle will appear on this tab. We can see there's a brake caliper that was taken. And again, these images could have been taken from longer than today, but this shows you every image that was taken on a customer's vehicle. As you can see, that image was from 5/28/2019, so it stays with the history of this customer's vehicle. Carfax service history. This is a really great utility, and it's something that I always recommend looking at, especially if we don't know a lot about the customer's vehicle. In any event, this can give us detailed information about what's been done on a customer's vehicle at locations in which they report to Carfax. I always like to look at this for a reference point. It gives me a good baseline of what type of maintenance the customer has done. I highly recommend as a technician that you just scan through this so you can have all the up-to-date information about a customer's vehicle. Moving over to Quick Vin Info Plus, this is sort of an iteration off of Carfax, but this is a really interesting one nonetheless. It breaks down the submodels so you can get more detailed information off the vehicle, such as wheelbase in inches, the gross ship weight, which is the base shipping weight of the vehicle, which this one is 3461. Again, it can let you know the type of brakes the vehicle has, whether it has anti-lock brakes or not. It gives you detailed information about the vehicle. I like to use this quite often. A lot of times when you're looking at brake pads or rotors, they base that on the wheelbase or possibly even the gross vehicle weight. So to be able to quickly look at this and say, okay, this vehicle weighs 3,400 pounds is a great tool, especially when you are communicating with dealers. So that's going to bring us to the completion of how you utilize the application from a technician's perspective.